Welcome to Schooling Around. Today we meet Steve Wolf, new principal of Oxford High, what brought him over from the East Side, and what's on his mind for Oxford High. Then, discovering some hidden talents of one of our own that will give you a new appreciation of things in our schools that you see every day. Stay tuned. Steve Wolf is just getting his feet wet as the new principal of Oxford High School. He took over after former principal Todd Dunkley resigned to pursue other things last year. Steve comes to us from Parcells Middle School in Grosse Pointe. He came there by way of Middle Creek High School in Raleigh, North Carolina. He currently lives in Troy with his wife and twin sons, Camden and Benjamin. But it all started right here in Michigan.
I've been an Eastsider for 4 years in Grosse Pointe, and it was a remarkable time in Grosse Pointe. I learned so much, grew quite a bit, and I'm really thankful for the experience I gained in Grosse Pointe. Yeah.
And you've been down over towards the East Coast for a while too, haven't you?
Absolutely. I spent, my wife and I, 7 years in North Carolina. When I graduated from Central Michigan University, there were no jobs to even apply for, let alone hope to be hired. So we went to North Carolina. I went there myself first, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, came a few months later. Took a bit of convincing to get her to move down there. But in my mind, I'd worked hard in college and I wanted a job. And so if it meant I had to move out of state, then I was going to move out of state. So I literally packed my car up, drove down to North Carolina, made a few phone calls prior to that and set up some interviews, obviously. But I camped out in the state park. I had one suit and a couple clothes. I think I cleaned up at McDonald's because there were no showers at the state park. Spent a couple days there, went on a few interviews. And was lucky enough to land the job, and so I drove back to Michigan and told my family I was moving, and that was it.
And so you're originally a Michigander?
So I'm originally a Michigander, yep. I grew up in Sterling Heights. I graduated from Stevenson High School, and then I went to Central Michigan University on a track and field scholarship.
Now, if memory serves, you're no stranger to International Baccalaureate, are you?
I'm very familiar. I worked at Millbrook High School in Raleigh, North Carolina, and so I was lucky enough to go through the accreditation process of becoming an IB school. And we had both an MYP program and a DP program, just like Oxford. And that was a phenomenal learning experience. It was really something that made me step back and reflect on my own teaching practice and my own philosophy of teaching and learning. And it was humbling because I thought I was a good teacher. And whether I was or I wasn't isn't the point. IB is such an intense program and has such a high standard for teaching and learning that it really improved my craft and just my thinking of how we do our business. So, yeah.
You know, I've talked to other teachers about the times before IB and going through the change to IB. I was just curious to know, did you go through some serious head scratching as you were looking over the program and thinking whether or not it was for real or for good?
We did. The natural response for every human is resistance, right? That's the way our brains are hardwired. So without a doubt, the first question is this going to be more work? Is this going to mean I'm going to have to change everything I've done over the last however many years? But once you dive into that philosophy of teaching and learning, it comes pretty quick and pretty clear that it is something that improves both your teaching, both the students' learning. So, it was a lot of head scratching and a lot of wondering, is this what's best for our students? Is this what's best for our school? And after those few years of going through that process, there's no question everyone in that community valued that decision to go IB.
I asked Steve what caught his eye about Oxford.
Right. Oxford High School and Oxford Community Schools caught my eye because of the number of opportunities that we provide our students, and that was a parallel between Grosse Pointe. And while Grosse Pointe on paper looks quite different than Oxford Community Schools, it's really not. And the commonality between the two districts are the number of opportunities we provide our kids. If your kid excels at math, science, English, any content area, they're interested in robotics, mechatronics, they're interested in business, DECA, marketing, they're interested in some online learning to enhance their experience here, or they want to be a full-time online student. I can go on and on and on. That drew my attention to Oxford. So when the posting came up last spring, I obviously took a look at it, and the more I dove in and did my research, the more I became enthusiastic about potentially applying. And the more I dug and the more I dug, the more pleased I was at seeing how similar it was to Grosse Pointe. Very different districts, certainly, but the parallel are the number of opportunities we provide our kids.
Now, this is your first gig as a high school principal, right?
This is, yep.
And I think you're a science and math guy.
I'm a science guy. I am, absolutely, yep.
So you're going to be watching and cheering the robotics team on and so on and so forth?
You bet. You bet. I'm not one myself into robotics, but our students and Team Torque are just phenomenal. And if there's anyone in the building or any program in the building that is passionate and proud about what they do, it's most definitely our robotics students, our parents, our staff. It's something amazing.
Now that you've gotten your feet wet here for really hardly more than a few days, I guess, as far as actual class time is concerned, any surprises? Was there anything that took you by surprise about the job or about the place or about the kids?
No major surprises. It's an interesting experience to overturn this rock and see what's beneath it. And as you do that, more questions arise. But my job in this first year is just to listen, observe, and learn. I have no intent of changing how we do things. I think change is inevitable, and that will come naturally, as it would regardless of who's in this seat. But I can't yet enhance or improve where we're at if I can't yet first step back and observe myself to see. So in doing that, there's been no real major surprises yet. There may be, and that's perfect, because if that occurs and a problem arises, it's a perfect opportunity to reflect on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we can improve. So that will come, and if it does, and when it does, perfect.
Anything popped out at you so far where you've said to yourself, boy, by the end of this school year, I'm going to take care of that?
Yes and no. I think that's true, but I wouldn't use the word I. I'd use the word we. We're going to take care of this. We're going to improve it. I'd like to think I have a growth mindset. I'd like to think I'm relentlessly optimistic in that anything that may be negative or bad or needs improvement, there will be improvement on it. And it's gonna require us to come together, put our heads together, do what's in the best interest of our kids and our students, and then backwards plan from that. So I'm sure that will occur, because it inevitably occurs in every school throughout the school year, no matter what. We have to be dynamic and flexible, so I look forward to when that arrives.
Next, we talk plans and programs. Stand by.
Are you a movie buff? A gamer? A fan of music? Or do you just enjoy all things media? Then you should watch Media Maniacs on Monday through Friday at 3:30 and at 11:30 on the weekends, right before the all-night movies. Remember, Media Maniacs. They review everything, and they're just crazy enough to do it.
I used to think news is news. It's all the same. But it's not. There's a big difference between local broadcast news and cable news. See, local stations are part of my community, connecting me to local news, weather, and sports on every device. It makes sense. Get the news from the people I trust who actually live here. No agenda, no bias like on cable shout shows or social media, just facts. For news I can trust, I stay local. Support your local stations. Text TV to 52886 today.
Over the past few months, we've seen a big change in our international student program. The The numbers have gone from around 70, mostly Chinese, down to 7, many from India. You know, I was talking to Chun Chun Tang yesterday about the International Kid Program, and I'm sure you're familiar with what the district's gone through the last few years on that. You know, we've gone all the way from thinking about a 200-student dorm, kids from China, to where we are now with just like 7 kids, most of whom are from India. Any thoughts on that? Where we're going with that, or what's going on?
Yeah, I think the intent is to make sure that we are diversifying our international program, and that we're not just looking at maybe China or even just India or Mexico, but we're looking for students who want the experience, the American and the Oxford experience itself, but also what value we can bring to Oxford High School and for our students. And so what's phenomenal about an international program is that it will enhance our students' experiences here. It will enhance our school culture. It'll present some challenges in all of those realms as well, but you can't gain an international perspective, which is a big philosophy of the International Baccalaureate program, the the DP and the MYP. You can't gain that as well as if you have a student from a different country who may view things through a completely different lens. So we value that incredibly. And so whether it's China, India, Mexico, and we can go down the list of potential countries, we're excited about diversifying that and seeing where that may go and grow.
A couple of things I'd like to just touch on besides that. On the subject of drugs, and I know we're really swinging wide.
There's a big pivot there.
I know. I'm trying to startle you. No, but there's a lot of talk about things like, and not here. I don't mean just for Oxford, but I mean for the population in general.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about opioid addiction and things like that. I was just curious to know, do we have any programs that might be coming into play to warn the kids about stuff like this? And you know, you got to watch out for this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We have no one individual program to address substance abuse, but it definitely falls under the umbrella of student well-being. And so, you know, last year we certainly had a very positive experience with 13 Reasons Why Not, and we do plan to build off that and continue with that momentum. But really, mental health in general, I think, is perhaps the focus we may go with, and that's a big umbrella in itself. But a part of that is also student well-being, and with that comes a parallel of drug abuse, substance abuse. And so we don't have one particular group of teachers or students who plan to address that, but we certainly plan to address student well-being, student mental health in general, with a lot of different groups, clubs, teachers, students in our building. And that's something that has certainly changed drastically in the last maybe 10 or 15 years. Even when I was in high school, you didn't really hear or see about that. And I grew up and went to a community similar to Oxford, middle class, and it's surprising. It's a bit scary knowing that good students, often from really good families, can get themselves into a slippery slope of substance abuse that really didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago to the extent that it does now. So we're certainly conscious of that, and while we treat each student individually and each family individually, it's something school-wide we're definitely conscious of, and we do plan to address in that umbrella of student well-being and student mental health.
Career ed seems to be refocusing these days. I'll ask Steve about that in a moment.
Vision loss is not something that you feel until it happens.
Most people lose their vision from diseases like macular degeneration and glaucoma, not at birth.
With macular degeneration, you lose your central vision.
You have a blind spot right in the center of your face, so I can't actually see your face.
So even that little circle in which I could see became a big blur.
I was 65 when I first was diagnosed with glaucoma.
There were no symptoms. I had no headaches.
3 million Americans have glaucoma, and half don't even know it.
11 million people in the United States have macular degeneration.
You lose mobility, independence changes your entire life.
So many eye disorders can be treated if caught early.
My husband tells me that I have beautiful brown eyes, and I don't want to lose that.
Make a plan today to get your eyes checked.
Visit brightfocus.org to learn more.
As the student loan balances rise, the career focus seems to be turning more to skilled trades. So what about Oxford High?
Yeah, discussions have been brought up about the trades in particular, if that's mentioned, without a doubt. So there are folks in the district, including myself, investigating what might be best for our students and community relative to the trade industry. Our current CTE, career technical education courses, really touch on a lot of those skills our students will need and allow for pathways which may not be the standard four-year college. And that's important because not every student is cut for a four-year college or university. And so while we offer just phenomenal programs at Oxford High School, we also have to continue to adapt those over time to best meet our students' needs, our community, and really where the industry is going. And that's dynamic and flexible, and that changes almost year to year. So whether it's trades, whether it's robotics, mechatronics, engineering, we do want to stay up to speed with what's industry business needs, what our students' needs are, and see if we can match and align those.
Lastly but not leastly, where were you at in your life when the light suddenly went on that I want to get into education?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a deep question too. My purpose is to lead and serve, and there's no question in my mind. That's what I'm here for. I went to Central Michigan University on a track and field scholarship, and I had always been the team captain. I excelled at sports in high school. Sports, growing up, it taught me really everything about character, leadership. And while I didn't realize it at the time, that was my pathway really to become a human being, a man. And it may not be athletics for all kids. It may be something academics. It may be robotics. It may be chess. It may be business, DECA. We can go on, HOSA. But when you get involved like I did in athletics or whatever that pathway is, that can carve you into the person you are. And it did for me. And so athletics brought me to college. It paid for my college, and it taught me the most valuable lessons. And it really allowed me to identify that people come to me. I have a passion, I have a commitment, and that really is who I am intrinsically. So I would say college is about the time that I realized, I want to go into education because I'm passionate about, I get the most joy and pleasure from leading others, helping others. I know without my coaches, without my family, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And so there was a sense of pride of giving back as well. And as I got into teaching, I naturally gravitated towards more of the leadership roles, getting more involved, and one thing eventually led to another. So it's who I am at the core.
Now, a little bird told me that you've been known to appear in the workout room here at school from time to time.
Yeah. Yep.
So you're leading by example as well as by word of mouth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still pretty active, and I exercise every day. The only time really for myself is in the morning. Anytime I'm not here at the school, I'm with my family and with my boys and with my wife. And so I wake up pretty early and get here and work out every day. That keeps my, I think, mental health balanced as well. So while I'm physically in shape, I'd like to think it's my mindfulness. It's my time just for me, dedicated for me to keep a good balance. And it's important in this job. There are a lot of stressors. You're pulled in multiple directions any given minute, any given day of the week. And so if you're not well, you can't best serve others. So it's important that you take care of yourself.
Any thoughts on governmental or societal support for education, public education these days?
Yeah. I'm not going to step on that landmine and go into too much depth and detail with that. But I'll just leave it with a general statement that we've got to support our communities and our schools, because really if we don't support our students and try to meet their needs and our community needs, we're not setting ourselves up for a successful future. So we've got to regain that focus, I think nationally, statewide, locally as well, and just make sure we're investing our time, energy, money. You can make a huge list into our kids, into our young families.
Finally, some final thoughts for the kids of Oxford High.
I encourage kids and parents to take risks. We have so many programs, so many opportunities for our kids. It's okay if you fail. In fact, you usually learn more from failing, and so we've worked so hard, I think, to take advantage of the opportunities in Oxford community schools, but we still have maybe a tendency to play it safe, and to achieve and achieve and achieve, which we've certainly done. It's okay to fail. And it's okay to take risks, because now is the time to take those risks. You'll learn more lessons now than you will at any point in your life when you step out of your comfort zone and outside of the box. So I encourage kids to step outside of the box and to stretch themselves.
New principal of OES, Steve Wolf. Next, our communications specialist sends a different message right here.
Battles aren't won solely on the field. That's a common misconception. Battles are won within, over enemies of fear, enemies of doubt. In that place where promises are kept. Promises to oneself. Promises to one's community. Promises to one's country. In the heart of every Marine, you'll find a promise. A promise forever kept. A promise of battles won.
When you walk in the back door of our admin building, you'll probably be greeted by communications specialist Dani Stublensky. She's worked for our schools for several years. You may remember her son Michael, who planned and financed a trip to China a couple of years ago. You may also remember Dani running for charity at Disney World. You may also have noticed some beautiful images outside Oxford Early Childhood and in the lobby of Leonard Elementary. Guess who made them?
About a decade ago, I started painting in the district. So the entryway of Daniel Axford is my artwork. There's a room inside of the middle school that I helped the kids create. They came up with the idea and then I helped institute it. I've got the mosaics over at OELC and at Leonard, and now also at OES. And at Leonard, and now at OELC. And then I also have stuff that's been painted and then put up on the walls at Daniel Axford as well. So it's kind of one of those things where I was told years ago that if you have a gift and a talent that you can share to bring joy to others, you should share it. And so when my kids were young and I had the ability, I just started painting for kids' bedrooms, and then started volunteering at the school to share that there with those students, and then would pull them in whenever I could to help me, so they had a piece and a part of being able to help beautify their school. And then at the library at OES too, when they started with all the IB information and trying to get that up on walls everywhere. So it started all there, and then somebody from OELC came and asked me if I would do a mosaic for the outside of their building. So in that process, we tried to figure out what was going to be best. And just like anyone, you needed an inspiration to be able to create your art. So I started to just kind of surf the web to try and come up with some ideas. And I pulled from their logo that was created for them, the hand, which is why it looks like a big hand, but then we turn the palm into a big heart, because all of our staff at OELC have the biggest hearts ever. And really our whole district does, and they feed our district. So if you'll notice, each finger actually has one of our elementary schools listed in it, because then from OELC they go out into our elementary schools. And if you look really carefully in there, also there is a heart inside of the big heart, and that kind of came off of the whole kissing handbook from years and years ago for little ones that have a hard time separating from mom and dad when they have to go to preschool, or any school actually. So we instituted that so that it could be used as a tool too for the moms and the dads and the kiddos that are having a hard time separating as they leave for school each day.
Now, I'm not an expert in artwork, but would there be a special name for the type of art? I mean, if this isn't a painting, this is kind of a combination of things, but you use little pieces of things to formulate some of the designs.
They're all glass pieces in that particular mosaic, and a mosaic is just a combination. And you can create a mosaic out of magazine pieces. You can create it out of just about anything. It's just a combination of different parts and pieces to create a larger picture. And so with this, we used tile, and I did have to, because I used what was inside of their logo as far as the Learn, Play, Grow, and then I had to create the rest, the heart and the OELC, which Carrie down at Merge helped me with. She is also one of our partners with our OVA program for art. So she was wonderful to work with to be able to create the parts and pieces that I didn't have readily available. And I just started hunting online for different things that would work, and then I also used some leftover parts from Leonard, where their tree was created, and so I just love the idea that they kind of blend together. And then there's also parts in there from years ago when I made the world at OES. So
how long ago was that?
That was when we first started IB, because that has the Choose, Act, Reflect around the world. So I honestly wouldn't have a timeline for that. I want to say it's probably 8 years ago.
So what got you started on all this stuff? I mean, what got you started tinkering around with these sorts of things?
Well, I was big into art in high school, but I never thought I could make a living at it, and I regret having not tried to continue down that path a little bit. But somebody out of the blue had asked me if I could paint something in their kids' room, and I said, well, I can try. And then from that springboarded a preschool in town asked me to paint their walls, and then it just a door opened where there was an opportunity for me to paint in kids' rooms. I love children, and so I just kind of went with it from that point. But there was also a point where I needed something. My kids were older, they were in school, and I needed something a little bit more full-time. And art wasn't fitting into that piece of my life, but it was still a gift that I've been given, and I wanted to be able to share. So any chance that I get to share it, I do. So,
have you ever put anything on display in any art fairs or anything like that?
Not since I was in high school.
Oh, Dani, you need to do that.
Someday, maybe. I mean, I still have 2 kids, and they are my main focus, and a husband who owns a business, and then this full-time, 2 dogs. So once I get everything, once those calm down and don't need as much of my attention, I certainly want to continue to pursue art, because it is a joy of mine.
Do you have a new project you're working on right now?
Not a big project, and that's been the nice thing about mosaics, is I can do that in my basement on my own time frame and my own timetable, rather than in someone's house on a wall or inside of a school on a wall. I've kind of shifted to making signs. So I have a few little sign projects. I also have in the past created growth charts for kids, and even for families. So they can have a family growth chart where no matter which house they're in, they carry that growth chart with them with all of their kids listed on it, and it becomes like an heirloom piece for their family.
If you know Dani, you know she's one of those people who always puts others first. These images will remind us of that for a long time. That's Schooling Around for this week, the first of the new school year. As always, thanks to Kyle Snage at the controls, Dan Zweiss at the editing desk, and you for watching. This is Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.